Hello everyone, this is Mert Amin. Today we will be talking about honeypots, which is an intrusion detection system. First of all, let's define the honeypots. What is a honeypot? A honeypot is a security mechanism that creates a virtual trap to lure attackers. A honeypot is a part of a network or website that is used to detect intrusion. It should appear as part of the system, which contains some data, but it's definitely not useful. So in other words, a honeypot is part of the servers and system that we have that has the exact same copy of the codes and commands in our system, but without any confidential and important data that is used to direct the attackers to this honeypot, to this server or service, so we can lure them or disallow them to attack our machine. Now let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages. The advantages is exposing vulnerabilities in a server. It will help us know what are the vulnerabilities in our servers, since the attackers will gain access through these vulnerabilities. It will distract intruders from targeting legitimate systems. Um, Intruders will get bored in the honeypots since it's um, empty of confidential data. So they will start searching and looking and trying to privilege escalate themselves to the root user, which is the super user, but they won't be able to gain any important information or data since it's just a honeypot. It helps also check on the misconfiguration in our systems. So when the intruders gain access, the first thing they think of doing is going to the super user, which is root, by privilege escalations. So we will find the misconfigurations in our files that help them gain the super user access. Now let's talk about the disadvantages. The main disadvantage is not isolating the honeypot from the server, because not isolating the honeypot from the server, it could be extremely dangerous, and it may be used to launch an attack on the real network. Fingerprinting is when an attacker can identify the true identity of a honeypot. It can create spoofed attacks to distract attention from a real exploit being targeted against the production system. They can also feed bad information to the honeypot. It can be a way to your system or our system, since attackers can gain access to the real system or servers we have and services just by bypassing the honeypots. Now let's talk about the honeypot deployment. This is our internet. Attackers that are trying to hack into our internet will be directed to this honeypot. If they are trying to attack our external services that are available to anyone, their packets will be filtered using this external firewall. And then it will go to the demilitarized zone and it will go to this router. This router will immediately guide them to the honeypot that is an exact same version of the service networks we have. It could be a web service, mail service, DNS service, etc. We can see what are the misconfigurations in the external firewall in the router that help them gain access to the external honeypot, and what are the misconfigurations in the honeypot and what are the vulnerabilities that we have. If they are trying to do the attack internally, the LAN switch will guide them to the honeypot that is in the internal network. This honeypot is an exact copy of one of the PCs that we have in the internal network that has direct access to our servers and services that are only available for our internal users. Maybe a weak password will help them gain access to one of our PCs, but the honeypot won't be allowing them to connect to these servers or services directly, because it will guide us to a big problem if they did connect to one of them. Now let's start testing the honeypot. I downloaded the directory that is Pentbox on my machine. I cloned it from GitHub. Then I unzipped the zip file that is Pentbox. Then now I'm in the directory that has the pentbox version that we're going to run. Now let's give it some permissions to run. Okay, now let's run it immediately. Here we have our code, our Ruby code. Now let's use the network tools, set up the honeypot. We'll use the fast auto configuration because we still have another demo to show. The honeypot is activated on port 80. Now let's check our IP address. Our IP address is this. We can go to the Firefox, type the IP address, port 80, enter. As we can see, it shows access denied by now's immediate time. Going back to the honeypot, we can see that it showed an intrusion attempt detected. It detected an intrusion attempt from our IP address and by time showing this. Now let's see another demo on honeypots that was found on YouTube. This user also cloned a directory called pent menu. He's changing his directory to the pent menu directory. He's giving himself, the user, permissions on the pent menu directory and files. Now he will run the pent menu source code. He will run a DOS attack on his machine. He will choose DOS attack, number 2. TCP send flood attack, number 3. Now he will enter the target URL, which is his machine's target URL. The target port is the default port, which is 80, but he will set the port to 139. He's using the interface IP. He's sending data with SYN packets. He will set the data bytes to send to the default one, 3000. Now the attack is started. He will go to his victim machine. Few seconds and it will show all packets. As we can see in here, it's showing that it received fragments from this IP, which is the attacking IP, the ID of the IP, and as we can see here above, in which port did the attack happen. And thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed.